So we've studied 1 Samuel chapter 15. Hopefully you've prayed and read through it, and we're going to look at that in our series of obedience. So who's the cast of characters here? We have King Saul. He is the king over the nation of Israel. And then we also have Samuel. Quick context to lay the landscape here. Israel is God's chosen nation. Samuel is a prophet for God to Israel. He gives true and faithful messages from God to the people. This is not a disputed thing. He is recognized as a true prophet of God. So that's Samuel. A little history. King Saul is the very first earthly king the nation of Israel ever had. They pleaded with Samuel for a king. Samuel, the prophet, was getting older. The people of Israel feared who they would look to for direction after Samuel was dead. His sons were not godly. They asked Samuel for a king. Samuel warned them against it. Samuel prayed to the Lord about it. The Lord warned against it, but gave the people a choice. After hearing the Lord's warning, the people still chose to have an earthly king. They wanted to be like the other nations. So that's the landscape here. Indeed, as they chose to have a king, God did indicate to Samuel who to choose, and that was King Saul. At this point in time, he's been king for a while. So in chapter 15, you read clear instruction from God through Samuel to King Saul to totally destroy the Amalekites. Now, I'll put something on the post that explains that request. It goes back to God's faithful and true and holy character, and all the way back to promises he made to Abraham, which you may have studied with us in January. But here's the point. Samuel was a known prophet. His word was accepted as an accurate message from God. King Saul understood that. The nation of Israel understood that, and it was not debated. King Saul knew the request to totally destroy. We see that in verse 3 of chapter 15. So Saul goes and he warns people who are near the Amalekites to get out of the way because he is going to come and wage war and destroy the Amalekites. But what happens? Saul does not completely destroy. He saves some of the best cattle and sheep and livestock, and he also takes the king alive. So then he builds an altar to himself. Samuel comes and asks him why he has not obeyed. Saul's very happy when Samuel gets there because in his own way of thinking, he has obeyed. Look at what he says. After being pressed by Samuel that indeed you have not obeyed, he still persists at verse 20. But I did obey the Lord. Saul said, I went on the mission and the Lord assigned me, and I completely destroyed the Amalekites in the next breath and brought back their king, and the soldiers took some cattle and sheep and plunder, the best of what was devoted to God, in order to sacrifice them to the Lord your God at Gilgal. Right here, we have Samuel in front of Saul, and Saul persisting that he has obeyed. And as he says he's completely destroyed, he is in the same breath and same sentence acknowledging that indeed he did bring the king back alive, and indeed they did keep the best of the livestock. But the best of the best is going to be devoted as a sacrifice to God. But here is the real picture. Here's the real reason. At the end of that verse 21, it says, the best was to be devoted to God in order to sacrifice them to the Lord your God, Samuel. He's talking to Samuel. He doesn't say the Lord our God. He doesn't say the Lord my God. He says the Lord your God, Samuel. That shows that Saul has not settled in his heart on the complete authority and lordship of God. He enjoys the position God has put him in as king. He has faith that when God says go wage war, we are going to destroy these people. He acts on that. He believes God will make them victorious. But he only obeys to the point that it pleases him.